If you asked a Puerto Rican whether they should become a state, what would they say? Or if they're proud to be considered American citizens, how do you think they'd react? The answer would probably surprise you, but keep watching and maybe you'll understand the relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States. In the complex tapestry of Puerto Rican society, the issue of racial dynamics and representation stands out as a significant challenge. Despite the rich diversity of its population, Afro-Puerto Ricans, who are of Black African descent, often find themselves marginalized in various aspects of society. This underrepresentation is evident across political, cultural, and social spheres, underscoring a deep-rooted issue in the island's racial landscape. The history of Puerto Ricans of African descent, starting with free African men, has been marked by struggles for recognition and equality. However, their contributions and presence in the narrative of Puerto Rico's development remain largely unacknowledged. This lack of representation is not just a historical oversight, but a contemporary issue that continues to affect Afro-Puerto Ricans. Adding to the complexity is the nuanced nature of racial identity in Puerto Rico. The racial dynamics in places like Orlando, where a significant Puerto Rican community exists, further illustrate the varied perceptions and experiences of race among Puerto Ricans. These dynamics are reflective of a broader issue of racialized citizenship, where unequal citizen status has been a colonial legacy impacting Puerto Ricans, particularly those of African descent. Addressing these issues, Law 24 was enacted, designating March 22nd as the Week for the Eradication of Racism and Affirmation of Afro-Descendants in Puerto Rico. This law acknowledges the systemic challenges faced by people of African descent, including derogatory treatment, deprivation of opportunities, and various forms of discrimination. It represents a step towards acknowledging and addressing the racial inequities that persist in Puerto Rican society. But disparaging treatment of the darker-skinned Puerto Ricans wasn't the only type of internal tension within Isla de Encanto. The nationalist movement was a big factor in why the US systematically tried to eradicate Puerto Rico's unique identity and assimilate. The roots of this movement trace back to the 19th century, notably marked by the Grito de la Res in 1868, a significant uprising against Spanish rule driven by a demand for political and economic freedom. This spirit of resistance continued well into the 20th century, with the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party playing a pivotal role. The Nationalist Party, advocating for Puerto Rico's complete independence, faced severe repression from the US authorities. Key events such as the Utuado Uprising and the Ponce Massacre, where nationalists were killed or executed, highlight the violent clashes and the lengths to which the government went to suppress the independence movement. Laws were enacted specifically to curtail nationalist activities, effectively silencing their voices and crippling the movement. Despite the historical significance and the sacrifices made, the call for independence has notably diminished in contemporary times. The decline can be attributed to various factors, including the changing political landscape, the allure of statehood with its perceived benefits, and the economic challenges that have led many to prioritize stability over sovereignty. Moreover, the complex identity of Puerto Ricans, who often hold a dual sense of belonging to both Puerto Rico and the United States, further complicates the narrative of independence. Today, while the movement for independence is not as prominent as it once was, it still exists, carried forward by a small but passionate group. They advocate not just for political independence, but also for cultural preservation and social justice, keeping alive the legacy of their forebears who fought for sovereign Puerto Rico. On the other side of that coin, advocates for Puerto Rican statehood argue that it would provide a solution to the island's long-standing status as a US territory, a position that has left its residents in a state of political limbo. Statehood is seen as a path to ensuring full representation in the US Congress and the right to vote in presidential elections, rights currently denied to Puerto Ricans despite their US citizenship. From an economic perspective, statehood proponents believe that it would grant Puerto Rico access to additional federal funding and support, crucial for addressing the island's economic challenges and rebuilding infrastructure, especially in the wake of natural disasters like hurricanes. This could lead to a more stable and prosperous Puerto Rico, which in turn could benefit the United States by fostering a stronger economy in the Caribbean region. Recently, the introduction of the Puerto Rico Status Act in the U.S. Congress has reignited discussions about the island's future. This legislation aims to provide a clear path for resolving Puerto Rico's territorial status, offering the options of independence, sovereignty and free association with the U.S. or statehood. The bill's introduction reflects a growing recognition of the need to address Puerto Rico's ambiguous political status and the rights of its people. This narrative around statehood is not without its complexities. There are concerns about how statehood might impact Puerto Rican culture and identity, as well as practical considerations regarding the island's economic integration into the U.S. Nevertheless, the push for statehood continues to be a significant part of Puerto Rico's political discourse, reflecting the island's desire for a more equitable and representative relationship with the United States. But, as it has been over 100 years since Puerto Rico became a colony, why is this matter still up for debate every few years? One significant factor is the perception of Puerto Rico as an alien nation, a view reminiscent of the challenges faced by New Mexico before it became a state. This perspective stems from a combination of cultural, linguistic, and historical differences, which have historically influenced mainland U.S. attitudes toward Puerto Rican statehood. Another critical aspect is the majority voting system in Puerto Rico, which may not accurately reflect the diverse preferences of Puerto Rican voters, as many of those who do not vote, is because they do not want to be involved or attribute to a foreign democratic system. The decision for statehood requires a clear majority, but voting patterns in Puerto Rico have shown a complex divide among statehood. While a majority of Puerto Ricans have voted to change their current territory status or chosen statehood, each time the vote was non-binding, listing some reasons such as not enough of a voter turnout. Additionally, the issue of gentrification has become increasingly prominent in Puerto Rico. The island has become an attractive destination for outside investors, partly due to significant tax incentives. These policies, aimed at stimulating economic growth, have led to an influx of wealthier individuals, particularly from the mainland United States. This influx has escalated property values and living costs, contributing to the displacement of local residents who can no longer afford the rising expenses. The gentrification process in Puerto Rico also reflects broader socio-political dynamics. The island's status as a U.S. territory without full statehood rights has historically influenced its economic and political decisions. As a result, policies that encourage gentrification are often seen as extensions of colonial influence, raising questions about cultural preservation and self-determination. Additionally, gentrification impacts Puerto Rico's cultural and social fabric. There are growing concerns about the loss of local culture and identity as neighborhoods undergo demographic shifts. The transformation of public spaces, particularly beaches, into private developments has led to clashes between local communities and developers, highlighting the tension between economic interests and public access to natural resources. As we sign off, remember that Puerto Rico's narrative is not just about the struggles and triumphs of an island, but also a reflection of broader global themes of cultural preservation, political rights, and economic justice. It's a story that invites continuous engagement and understanding. Go ahead and take a look at this video if you want to see another example of how colonialism still affects a country today. We'll see you next time.